This video is about a chap called John Thorneycroft Hartley. Never heard of it. He was born in 1849. He was born into a very rich family in Wolverhampton. They were manufacturers of iron and iron products. In 1874 he was appointed Vicar of Burneston, a small village in North Yorkshire, not far from me, just down the road in fact. And it was under the patronage of the even more wealthy Duke of Cleveland's family, who lived at Newton House in Londonderry, North Yorkshire. And they owned the massive Raby estates, the Duke of Cleveland and his descendants. In 1875, the Reverend John Thorneycroft Hartley married Alice Lascelles, I think it's pronounced, who was the niece of the Earl of Harewood from Harewood House just outside Harrogate. So he was very well connected. Now tennis, which up till that point had been played indoors with a sort of big droopy net and you could play it off the walls, became very popular in a sort of mid-Victorian era, about the 1860s, and moved outside on the grass and became known as lawn tennis. Initially the courts were sort of egg timer shaped, seems a bit bizarre, and the size depending on the size of your lawn. But in 1875 the Marylebone Cricket Club, or the MCC as it's better known, devised a new set of rules, and the courts became rectangular and of uniform size. This new game, lawn tennis, it was very, very popular with the well-to-do because it was too expensive for the sort of the lower orders, the hoi polloi, but it wasn't as wildly expensive as polo, and you didn't need such a massive space to play it in. Tennis clubs sprang up all over the place, and in 1877 the first World Championships were held at the All England Croquet and Lawn Tennis Club in Wimbledon. The roller, which was pulled by a pony to flatten the lawn, was broken and they needed a tenner to fix it. And that was the sole reason for this competition, to raise money to repair this roller. Anyway, there were 22 entrants into this men's world championship. It was only the men's, so there was nothing else. It was a men's world championship, as they called it. And it cost a guinea, which was, trying to work it out, which was £1 and 1 shilling, which is £1 and 5 pence in today's money. And the prize was 12 guineas and a trophy. It's quite surprising because in 2015 the winner got £1,880,000. These championships in 1877 were watched by 200 spectators, and they paid a shilling, which is 5 pence, to watch the game. In 1879, the Third World Championships, the Reverend John Hartley entered Wimbledon from Burneston, and he rode his horse from Burneston to Thirsk, which is about 10 miles. Obviously some livery at the station there, and got the train down to London, and then travelled from King's Cross across to Wimbledon by coach. He hadn't expected to do very well, but he reached the quarter-finals on the Saturday. But expecting to be back home, he committed himself to Sunday services at Burneston the following day. So he had to travel all the way from Wimbledon back to King's Cross, get the train up to Thirsk, get on his horse, ride the 10 miles to Burneston, and then on the Sunday he had to take the Sunday services, of which there were probably 3, starting early morning and finish with evensong. And if that wasn't bad enough, one of his parishioners, who was obviously a regular churchgoer, was dying, and John Hartley spent all Sunday night sitting with this dying parishioner before setting off back to London on the Monday. Horse ride to Thirsk, train from Thirsk to King's Cross, and then he changed in the coach between King's Cross and Wimbledon. His opponent in the final of this championship was a chap called Mr. V.S. St. Ledger de Gould, hell of a name, who was a member of the Irish aristocracy. More about him later. Anyway, J.T. Hartley beat him, but before he could become the men's world champion, he had to play the winner of the previous year. The winner of the previous year, he didn't have to appear in the preliminary rounds, he only appeared at the end to play the winner of that year, who in this case was this John Hartley. The winner of the previous year had been a chap called Patrick Francis Haddow. But Haddow decided he couldn't be bothered, as, to quote him, it was a sissy's game played with a soft ball. And with Haddow not turning up, John Thorneycroft Hartley was declared the world men's tennis champion, which is incredible. Anyway, just as an aside, this Patrick Haddow, he was an interesting character. He came from a very interesting family. He was one of 7 brothers. Their father was the chairman of the P&O shipping line, so he was well fixed. And all the brothers were sent to Harrow Public School, just outside London. And they were known as the Harrow Haddows. one of his brothers was unfortunately killed on the Matterhorn. He was part of the team that ascended the Matterhorn, which is a mountain in the Alps, for the very first time. And on the way down, he unfortunately slipped and dragged two more with him, and they were killed, which was very, very tragic for the family. John Hartley's opponent in the final, this Vicar St Ledger de Gold, liked the high life. He was very popular with the sort of jet set of the day, and he was the Irish tennis champion, based at, I think it was called the Fitzwilliam Lawn Tennis Club in Dublin. He was especially popular with the ladies. But following his semi-final, rather than resting up before the final, he took himself off to London and had a somewhat debauched night before coming back for his final. He hadn't expected to be beaten by a Vicar from darkest Yorkshire. That was basically the nub of it. He was supremely confident that he was going to win. But having lost, it was a bitter blow to his ego and to his adoring fans. He never really recovered from this beating by Vicar Hartley, and his life spiralled downhill from that point, which will appear on the next video. Anyway, to come back to John Hartley, he successfully defended his title the following year, 1880, defeating a chap called Herbert Lawford, who was from Scotland. But in 1881, which was his third year at Wimbledon, he met a chap called William Renshaw, who thrashed him in not much more than half an hour. Renshaw became very famous. He won the Wimbledon Men's Championship 7 times, which was a feat only equalled by Pete Sampras and the man who's one of the current good tennis players, Roger Federer. They've both won it the same number of times, 7. So, following his defeat by Renshaw, he settled down to vicaring at Burneston, and he was there till 1919, when I suspect he retired. He became Canon of Ripon Cathedral. He lived in a lovely house called the Abbey alongside the River Nid at Knaresborough, and he died there in 1935, aged 86. But he was brought back to Burneston and he's buried alongside the church. This is St Lambert's Church, Burneston, a village in North Yorkshire. A little village, in fact, for that matter. And at the east end, over there, is an insignificant grave with a cross lying on the ground. So, Here is the final resting place of John Thorneycroft Hartley, Vicar of St Lambert's, Burneston, and twice Wimbledon men's champion in 1879 and 1880, whilst he was the vicar here. And he died on August the 21st, 1935, aged 86 years, although it's not terribly easy to see. In 1919 he retired and went to live in a rather nice house called the Abbey on the banks of the Nid in Knaresborough, but was obviously brought back here for his internment. So there he is, double Wimbledon men's champion, won the 3rd and 4th championships. It just seems a great shame to see his final resting place in such a mess. You'd think they'd do something about it, but there we are. But that's him, the man himself. In 2008 his achievements were recognised by a blue plaque, which is on what was the vicarage but is now Burneston Hall. And it was erected by the former women's Wimbledon champion Anne Jones, and there was a sort of celebration dinner at RAF Leeming afterwards. And the tennis court is still there, the tennis court at the vicarage where John Thorneycroft Hartley mastered his craft. What is now Burneston Hall is for sale at the moment, if you fancy it, but you need deep pockets. What happened to V.S. St Ledger de Gould, who was just known as St Ledger to his circle, couldn't have been dreamed of. Even in your wildest dreams you couldn't have made this up. And that's the subject of the next video.